Good morning, Jack. How are you?
Morning, Lisa. I'm good, thanks. How are
Good.
you doing?
And good morning, Ghee Gang. We're here again for part of our education series. And today we are talking about cholesterol. It's a bit of a sticky subject. So, there's lots of studies around, and I guess we just want to open by saying, I'm not a health professional. I make ghee, gorgeous, delicious ghee. Um, Jacqueline's a health professional, but we always say to, how do we phrase it, Jack, to check with your
Always check with your
consulting
primary
physician?
healthcare practitioner.
There you
So,
go.
look, there's so much information, as Lisa's saying, about ghee out there. And what we want to share with you today is our experience and what I've learned over the years and what Lisa's experienced. And, up to you to make your own decisions.
Yeah, I love that word, edutainment.
Did I say that?
No, that's what YouTube has on their thing. Is it for edutainment purposes? Yes.
Excellent.
So let's talk cholesterol. Firstly, kind of what is it?
Well, cholesterol is a substance in the body that's really important. It's like a fat molecule, but it does so many good things, like important things in our body. For example, the right amount of cholesterol supports heart health and cardiovascular workings in the body. It helps to create vitamin D. It supports the healthy structure of the cells in the body, just like ghee does. Interesting correlation. And it's important for our brain health, and it's the building block of many of our hormones in our body. So it's not like
Never knew
cholesterol
that.
is bad. It's like we need cholesterol, and too little cholesterol is not great. Because then there's more wear and tear in the body, the cellular structures break down, there's just not juiciness in the body, because you can think of, if it's supporting hormone health, our brain tissue, which is mostly fat, our heart health, which is a big muscle, they all need these lipoproteins, which is what cholesterol is, to work well.
Okay, Jacqueline, do we get cholesterol or do we make cholesterol?
Both. So
Okay,
yeah, our body will make cholesterol, but it can also, we ingest foods that are rich in cholesterol, and that helps our body to make cholesterol.
okay, because
Yeah.
ultimately all the what we eat gets broken down into its micros, doesn't it? And then it gets built up again, like the individual amino acids get built into proteins. And yeah, okay, I
Yeah,
get it.
and to break cholesterol down, not to get too scientific or
Yeah,
confusing,
sure.
we've got the low density lipoproteins and high density lipoproteins. So and then there's a very low density lipoproteins, which
So that's the
scientists.
LDL, that they HDL they talk
Yeah,
about.
LDLs, the bad guys. The
Okay, the low
VLDLs are
ones.
the really bad guys. So the low density lipoproteins are not great. It's the high density lipoproteins, because they have more protein than fat in them.
There
What
you
I understand.
go. That's the difference.
Yeah, and we want to have more high density lipoproteins than we do the low density lipoproteins.
So that's stronger, aren't they? Because they're not only fat, they've got that protein there that sort of builds a,
That's
yeah,
correct.
I
Yeah.
can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if we can just think, broaden again the lens and just think, well, we need fat in our body, for years and years and years, when our society and food production went into low fat, everything low fat. And then we had the surges of, increased diabetes, increased cardiovascular, health issues, heart diseases, obesity. So it's like, well, it's pretty clear now, 50 years down the track or more, that fat is important in our diets. And it's really, that we need good quality fats. And that's where ghee, definitely comes into the picture.
Yes. Yes. So I read when I heard about this, I was, where am I going to go with this? When I No, I'm going to start off with the first, because we're talking about our experiences. So, someone close to me tested for really high cholesterol and then went and spoke to a health practitioner. And they mentioned that the testing measures for the cholesterol in the blood. not in the actual arteries. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's interesting. So I'm just going to leave that there because I think that's important when we look at how do we measure it in the body. It's like, well, we are just measuring it in the blood initially, and then you can go and have other types of tests which will actually measure how it is in the body, and they can often be surprisingly different.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Like,
before we start taking tablets for these things, so let's check that we're actually have a problem.
it's a little bit like our iron levels. You could have, the blood iron looks good, but the iron stores are really low. And so, it's important to get tested properly. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And,
So
even testing gives us a window. I'll share a story about a friend of mine who, is not overweight, who's, reasonably fit. And she did a very, very strenuous, and just say one more thing, she doesn't have, high cholesterol in her family as well. And she did a really strenuous 6-day hike, and then had blood tests soon, very soon after, when she'd come back just for other things. And it came back that her cholesterol was really high. And it was a real shock because it was like, that's odd. Like, that's not normal. And looking into that further, and then within a week or two, it was right back down into normal levels again, because she went and had it tested again. And so the joining the dots and what we think might have happened in that scenario is that high stress will increase our cholesterol like really quite quickly, because our body's needing to put cholesterol almost into the blood to give us glucose, or energy for the brain, for the muscles, for the heart muscle, for everything. So like all of our testing, hormones and iron and everything, including cholesterol, I think the tests can be really variable because they show a window in time. And it's like, well, what has been happening leading up to this window in time as well? And that was just a really interesting scenario where it was up suddenly really high, and then it went back to normal again within a really relatively short space of time. So high stress, I do believe, is a massive player in increasing cholesterol in our body.
Well, high stress for anything, right? Continued high stress just puts everything out of
under pressure.
out of kilter. Yeah. So I was really blessed to receive an email from one of your clients a little while back, saying that they had tentatively started to take half a teaspoon of ghee a day because they have high cholesterol, and they were really quite nervous.
Yeah.
And tentative. But it was really good news. Do you want to tell us about that? And
yes, so this lovely lady.
No names,
she's well, and she, had medium high cholesterol, so not super high, but her doctors had recommended that she stay away from certain foods. And yet in her life and in her history, she's enjoyed having ghee. It helped her feel good in many other levels of her body. And so she tentatively decided to start having this small amount of ghee each morning, and within 2 months tested again, and was really pleased to see that the HDLs had gone up and the LDLs had gone down. So, we need to look at overall cholesterol. And this is something that many studies have shown that ghee does, is it helps to reduce the baddies, the LDLs, and it helps to build the good HDLs, high density lipoproteins in our blood. So she reached out to us and shared that she was delighted, because she likes to have ghee in her diet, delighted to see this outcome.
And so how's the ghee doing that? Is that because of that crossover of the cell membrane, that it can like release the LDLs out of the cell? And
well,
that's what's happening.
I'm not a scientist, so I'm not entirely sure, but I do like reading articles. And one of the newest articles that I've read is that it's the carbon, or the ghee, has a very different carbon atom structure to other saturated fats. So this is something that I've learned quite recently.
Send me that article.
Yeah, I will. So, ghee has a significantly smaller carbon atom structure to other saturated fats. And it's thought these days that it's not just saturated fats are bad, and therefore they're, increasing risk for heart disease and cardiovascular disease. What they're seeing now is it comes down to the size of the structure of these atoms, and ghee has a much smaller size than other saturated fats.
Well, I'm getting super excited as I hear that, because Ayurveda is thousands of years old. They didn't have microscopes back in the day. And in all their ancient texts, they talk about ghee and that its ability to drive nutrients deep into the body very quickly because it's so small.
Yes.
I have no idea how they knew that, but they talk about it being the small.
That's so true. They even had a word called krimi, which kind of means
but like bacteria, anything
bacteria,
really,
exactly.
small,
so they recognized, they couldn't see it, but they knew there was something, that was creating changes in the body. And they, so their wisdom, honestly, amazing. But let's also look at, the other attributes of ghee, which, it's very high in the omega-3s, which is really good for heart health. It's very high in vitamin E, which has also been shown to be good for heart health. So, there are a lot of studies out there that might be negative about ghee, but often, and I wonder, because it's hard to tell, but a lot of ghee used in India these days, and I'm talking about Indian studies, not other studies, they use something called vanaspati, which is a highly processed vegetable oil ghee. It's not ghee. And I mean, that's become very popular because it's a lot cheaper. Yeah. So, the rise in the last 40 years when Indians have been using more of this vanaspati, vegetable oil-based trans fat ghee, has gone through the roof. Whereas, for hundreds and hundreds of years in India, when they've used ghee, it wasn't, cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol was not a major issue in India.
Well, the Indian government, if it's not written there on the container, the packaging now, are really cracking down on that and calling it adulterated ghee. They're doing, it's like, because they're so proud of this is, one of their national foods. They're like got their Indian FBI onto it, and they're sending in SWAT squads to go into like factories and, catching them at it.
That's brilliant.
Love it. And being in the food industry, I have a Google alert for ghee, and I see articles, and I'm not talking one article, I'm like talking 2 or 3 article alerts every day about raids and ghee adulterations, and
wow,
it's quite prolific. And it is, people trying to make a buck. And I guess if you don't know any better and you're just using it as a high heat cooking oil,
then unfortunately it's becoming really not great inside, not good on the inside.
And it's yellow. It's a bit like when everyone went to margarine from butter, right? It's yellow, it spreads.
It's
but it's not the same.
That's so true.
So there is some Indian articles though that talk about it being really good, like some serious Ayurvedic articles about and Cleveland Health Clinic as well have some articles.
Good resource.
Yeah.
So the take-home message is really, there are many things that affect cholesterol in our body. Poor elimination, not taking care of our livers. If digestion's not working well, then we'll accumulate more toxins or gunking up in our system, and then that accumulates and will clog the system. If elimination's not working well, if we don't have enough fiber in our diet, all of these things impact. And then we talked about stress as well. So, there's always many factors when it comes to high cholesterol and genetic predispositions as well. So, the take-home message is that it's important to have a balanced diet. It's important to have regular exercise that's not too strenuous or stressful on the body, because that raises that stress in the body. And it's good to have a good amount of ghee in your diet as well.
So are we for or against ghee for cholesterol?
I'm totally for it.
Okay, but
We'll always
can we
say,
put a little caveat?
yeah,
A
yeah,
little bit.
exactly. And I was about to say, it always comes down to the individual.
Yeah.
And small amounts. You can totally overdo it, and that's not good too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always, when I'm speaking to people at the markets, I'm like, because I know this, butter will raise your cholesterol. Yeah. So ghee is a better butter.
And I wonder if
when
that's
it comes
because
to
of the
cholesterol.
size. Again, I wonder if that comes back to the size of these carbon atom structures. If butter has bigger, and then ghee, the beautiful process it goes through, makes smaller.
Smaller. Yeah, and the fatty acid chains, they change their length. So yeah, smaller.
Yes.
Fabulous.
One more thought, the conjugated, linoleic acids, they, help to reduce obesity in our body as well. And, having excess weight is another factor with cholesterol. So there's another tick for ghee.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I think with such a tricky subject, we've done really well today. Thank you, Jack. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to get this one out onto the socials, because I think people are genuinely interested. And, we're not saying that ghee is the be all and end all for everything, but it's such this wonderful superfood that it's really cool to get to know the intricacies of it and why is it so good. And so having you on to be able to cover these things is really good. And I understand that you have a course coming up.
Oh, I do. So doors are open for my beautiful 8-week online program called Embodied Wisdom, which is supporting women to balance their hormones naturally, whether they're coming into perimenopause or even earlier. It's really open for the ages 30-ish to 55, 60, because it's for all women who are just tired of living with overwhelm, with excess tiredness, with anxiety, with irregular cycles, with endometriosis, fibroids, heavy bleeding, brain fog, hot flushes. There's too many.
Is that stress word? We're talking about hormone stress.
But there's too many scenarios that we all just consider normal for women now, but they're not normal. They're common, but they're not normal. So it's, what I love to do in my program is give women the tools. Each week we learn a new little understanding and process that can bring natural hormone balancing into their lives. So I'm really excited that women are jumping into that. Doors close on Thursday, so yeah.
All right, well, we'll put a link up in the Facebook group for that. And because this is going on YouTube as well, we'll put a link underneath to perhaps just your generic website, so then they can click.
Yeah, you can go,
because it will live a little bit longer on YouTube than it will on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right, Ghee Gang, that's it for today. So it's a big tick for ghee for cholesterol. Winner, winner, winner. We'll leave it there. See you later.
Yeah, have a great day, everyone.